wonder if Carl will finish this by the end of today. Hey? He should. You'll start to see what he's busy with in just a moment. In fact, it comes out of this chapter where we are. Maybe as a clue. All right, we're into chapter 5 then. The scene doesn't change. We're still there in the throne room. And it really just goes out of where he ends in the previous one. And suddenly there, in the hand of the one sitting on the throne, he notices a scroll with 7 seals on it. So this is then the first sort of the patterns that we're going to see. The 3 main things that always stand out of the book is the seals, the 7 seals, and then the 7 trumpets, and then the 7 bowls. And for most of us, the difficult part of reading through the book is because of all of these things, because all of them are tough stuff. There's 7 tough things over here, and then another 7, and it just seems to get worse as the book comes out, all right? So while we read through it, just see where it lands. It's going to land with the coming of Jesus Christ. Already here by chapter 6, we're going to end the timeline of the earth. So it's a layer. It's a one layer that we're about to look in. And then with a trumpet, we're going to look at another layer at the same thing. And then with the bowls, we're going to look at another layer of the same thing. So he has the scroll in his hand with the 7 seals. And John starts weeping. He's just filled with sadness because nobody is found worthy to open up the scroll in the hand of God Almighty. Now, we would feel the same. If you're standing there and the one who created heaven and earth has something written down and sealed up in his hand, you want to know what it says. That must be something incredibly profound, more than we can ever fathom. But it's sealed up and nobody can open it up. And as he's looking at it and crying, one of the 4 living creatures around the throne says to John, "Don't cry. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah." And he turns around and he sees a lamb. And that lamb didn't look like my picture. Right? He's got 7 horns, and I just don't know how to draw a lamb with 7 horns that he still looks like a lamb. Right? So you come and draw the horns over there. Go for it. Ruin my picture. The lion is the lamb. He looks around to see the lion, and there he sees the lamb. Not just a lamb, but looking as if he has been slain. In other words, from the white wool of it, I'm picturing blood have stained his wool. All right? It's not a pretty picture. And then it said, he is worthy to open up the scroll, to break the seals and open it up. But for what reason is he worthy? Because he laid down his life. He was obedient to the point of death. He was willing to pour out all of his blood in obedience to the Father. So very often we sing and we speak about the love of Jesus. How great is the love of Jesus for me? And it is true because the 2 are one. But the gospel message is really the Father loved the world so much that he sent his Son. So the praise and the glory that they give to the Son is because of his obedience to the Father. Because of the Father's love, he was willing to obey his dad and say, you love them so much, I'll give my life for them. Which is more powerful than the other way around. Because I'll be willing to give my life, even Jesus said it, a friend will give his life to those he loves, right? But will I give my life if Rob loves you so much? I don't love you that way, but I'll be willing to die for you because I love Rob. That's a different kind of picture, right? So that is why he's worthy to open up the scroll, because he gave up his life. Now we have to turn over there because we're going to see a lot of songs being sung in just a moment. And the first one being, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. The incredible diversity from all of the earth. You purchased people for God. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth. We're going to see this theme all throughout as well. Being kings, sitting on the thrones, the elders, with harps in their hands, and with bowls bringing incense to God. It's a weird picture if you come out of this kind of time, because a king doesn't have a harp to bring worship and doesn't have a bowl with incense. He's not in the temple. But the picture is God made us both of these things, kings and priests. And just an important point, out of every tribe and tongue and language. So out of all of these, he made one nation joining together, one kingdom, one people. It's that little rock growing to fill the entire earth that Daniel saw. And then they continued to sing the song. This is why I wanted to read there in chapter 4 for you earlier about the worthy. Worthy is the Lamb, verse 12, who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise. And again, how much does he receive? There's 7 over there, right? So even in the little details of the book, it all comes down to 7. He receives all 7 of those attributes: glory, power, honor, wealth, praise, all of that. And then to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. We have to actually sing that, eh? Do you know the song? To him who sits on the throne and unto the Lamb be honor and glory and power and da-da-da-da forever. Couldn't remember, all right? There's so much singing, there's so much worshiping happening in that throne room the whole time. And even in that, we have to recognize something of what we do here together as the children of God. As part of that throng of people that God brought from all nations is filled with song and praise and glory to him. It's part of what God made us to be. We are made to worship him and to glorify his name. Now, when he starts opening up the seals, suddenly the picture is not that pretty anymore. Because first of all, when he broke that first seal, one of the 4 living creatures comes and says to John, "Come, look, don't miss this." A white horse is running out, and on it sits a rider with a bow and an arrow. And on his head is a crown, but it's not a king's crown, it's a victor's crown. So really it's like one of those laurels that you'll receive at the old Olympic Games, all right? It's a victor's crown. And he's a champion riding out to gain victory, riding out to conquer. We'll get back to him just now. The second seal is opened up, and then he saw a red horse, and its rider had a massive sword in his hand. And he was riding out, given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. He went to kill, to take away peace from the earth. Third seal was opened, and I looked, and there before me was a black horse, and its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hands. And the detail there is quite interesting. It was shouted out, 1 kilogram of wheat for a day's wages and 3 kilograms of barley for a day's wager, but do not damage the oil and the wine. Always interesting. I think what I read in that is he's saying, for the poor people, it's going to be hard. For the wealthy people, not that much. Their stuff won't be damaged. So it's speaking about the disparity. The poor gets poorer, the wealthy are more wealthy. It's a general theme on earth. And then a 4th seal was opened, and I looked, and there before me was a pale horse, and its rider was named Death. It's the first of those that's actually given a specific name. It's a specific one. And Hades was following close behind it, and they were given power over a quarter of the earth to kill by the sword, famine, plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. It's a different kind of death from the others that's spoken of, eh? The other one is war is taken away and it's war. Or peace is taken away and it's war. This one is in murders, or it's theft, or it's hatred, stuff like that. Wild beasts. And then the 5th seal was opened, And when he opened the first seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God. And they were crying out to the Lord. They said, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" Now, how have these people died? It says over there they died for their testimony of Jesus, right? But they died in all of the ways that the four horses showed up at the top. They died in poverty and lack. They died in illness because Hades and death were doing their thing. They died because there was a champion who decided, "I want to conquer, man, and nobody's going to stand in my way. And I want to hit the top ladder, and I don't care who gets hurt in the process." In every one of those ways, these guys under the altar died. And they're crying out to the Lord, and they said, "How long, Lord, until you're going to avenge our blood? Because it's wrong, it's unjust, it's unfair what is happening to us over here, Lord. We're suffering because of the sinfulness of the earth. You must come and make it right." And he said they were told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants were killed, just as they had been. So there's a full number of us that needs to come into relationship with God before the world will be made right, before God's going to set things right. So this in itself is already a great encouragement for those Christians who are in incredible persecution because things are not right. Remember, in those times, they were not allowed to buy and sell in the marketplace if they do not worship the emperor. So there was a certain seal given or a mark given that says, "I went into the temple of the emperor and I bowed down. Therefore, I can take my purchases to the marketplace and I can deal." Right? It's unjust. We must not worship him. Our God says we may not, and therefore we cannot trade. And they were literally chased out. "Oh, you met together." A scandalous thing reported about the Christians. Many of the early church fathers tried to explain to the emperors what Christians do because people went around saying, "These people drink blood when they get together. And they break people's bodies and eat it when they come together," because they were told about communion and they misunderstood, right? And they said, "These people dip one another and they kill one another in water, drowning one another," because they were told about baptism and they misunderstood, whether it's willfully or not willfully. But for those reasons, Christians were persecuted. It's unjust. What is happening to these people are unjust. And they're crying out and say, "God, another one of us died. Another one of us suffered. When are you going to make these things right?" And the encouragement is a little longer. I will come and make it right. And just now we're going to see how he's going to make it right. Now, just on that first horse quickly, I don't know how your view would have been, but some people think that the first horse is Jesus riding out. He's the conqueror going out to conquer. The only reason why we'd say that is because later in the book, he rides on a white horse. He is the rider on the white horse. At that moment, there's no question that it's Jesus because he's pierced in his side, blood flowing out, staining his clothes. And he's got a crown on his head, a king's crown. It's not this kind of victor's crown. And he's got the sword coming from his mouth, like in chapter 1. And he's got the scepter in his hand, like in chapter 12. So in all of that, there's no question. It's an image of Jesus riding out, taking the armies of heaven into battle against the beast and the false prophet. Over here, the only connection is the white horse. And it's not a symbol of Jesus. Because of the rest of the three, they're not identified as anything having to do with Jesus in the first one. It's not as if Jesus are leading these out, all right, into battle. Some others say it's a deceiver, the deceiver. In other words, the Antichrist or the false Jesus. My view would say if it's the deceiver, then God is actually deceiving us by not telling us it's the deceiver. In that sense, it would be deceptive, right? Because now we think it's Jesus, but it's not. We're deceived. So who's deceiving us? He's not making it clear. It's a conqueror. So what God is really saying in these 4 horses, he's saying, this happens on the earth. And you, as children of God, you suffer because of these things. Some of you suffer because somebody in the company wanted to climb the ladder and he stepped on you on the way up there. It's unjust. And it hasn't been made right yet, because in this world, things like that happen. Some of you suffer because of illness, and we continue to trust for healing. But we have lost some out of our own flock, and we haven't seen the breakthrough yet that we're pushing in for. And it's unjust, right? It's things that should not happen. It's not God's original plan. And he's telling them, hang on, wait, there will be a time. So let's see the next seal broken. I watched as he opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. The sun turned black, the whole moon turned blood red. The stars in the sky fell to the earth, and the heavens receded like a scroll. And every mountain and island was removed from its place. And then the kings of the earth and everyone else called to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. It's the end. Jesus is saying there will be a time where I will come, the Lamb will come, and all of the kings of the earth will cry out, oh no, judgment is here. Things are going to be made right. Things are set in their proper place. That's the encouragement. There will be a time that I will make these things right. But then it flips over to chapter 7, because we haven't seen the next seal opened up yet. And it sort of has a bit of an interjection. And suddenly he sees 4 angels in the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds. Now we're going to meet these 4 angels later in the book again, right? And they are told, wait. Hold back the winds. Do not allow the earth to be destroyed because of what's going to come. Do not bring damage on the trees and on the land and on the grass and everything else yet. Hold it back until the children and the full number of God has been sealed. So what did he just tell those under the altar? Hang on, your full number must still come in. Hang on, your full number must still come in. And now in the next chapter, he's saying, I'm holding back spiritual forces so that I can seal those who are mine. And it's very interesting that it's a seal. Because later on in the book, as opposed to the mark of the beast, we're going to see a signature of Jesus and of the Father on the foreheads of those who are his. A different kind of picture. Now, a mark is made by an illiterate beast, right? He can't write. But the Lamb can write. He's the King of Kings. So he writes his name down on the heads. All right? And so my 2 names, the name of the Father as well. You belong to both of us. Over here, he uses the picture of a seal. Why? Because he's busy with the seals on the scroll. It's a different picture. And so while these 4 are held back by the command of God, another angel, a mighty angel, comes out of the sun holding a signet ring in his hand. In other words, a royal signet ring, the king's ring, is brought. And he went and he marked the 144,000 that are God's. And then we get some strange details over there. Because he says, this is the nation of God. It's like a census. It's like the beginning of the book of Numbers and the end of book of Numbers. It's a census of the nation. How big is the nation? How many are here? And he starts to put a seal on every one of their heads. In other words, every one of them are registered. Every one of them are numbered. They part off. So in that picture, if one is missing, the number is going to be what? 143,000. That sounds wrong. It's just not right. It's not perfect. It's not complete. Every single one matters because everyone is numbered and put into the census. You belong to God. Bah, you belong to God. Bah, seal on your head. Now, many people will read that as being Israel, but so many things about that list is absolutely wrong. It's not Israel. Just open it up there in front of you. First of all, there's one of the tribes that should not be there. Can you spot him? Which of one of those are not a tribe in Israel? Eh? Oh no, Judah is absolutely. No, Manasseh is there. Joseph. Joseph is not a tribe in Israel. Why is Joseph not a tribe in Israel? Just before Jacob died, he called in Joseph with his 2 sons. He says, bring your 2 sons. You are so precious to me. I'll take your 2 sons as my sons. And then it was that whole scene of the hands swapped around, remember? He put his right hand on Ephraim, and he says, this one is going to be greater than Manasseh, which is the eldest one. And Joseph still protests and said, no, Dad, you're doing it wrong. You're blind. You can't see. He says, no, I know what I'm doing. This one's going to be the greater. And Ephraim was then the royal tribe of the northern empire. All right? So he was, Jeroboam came out of him. The first monarchy of the northern tribe, Israel, came out of Ephraim. So it was fulfilled, the prophecy. But from there on out, there were actually 13 tribes in Israel. It's quite weird. And for the reason of the 12 being perfect in their sight, something complete about that, they wanted to remain 12. So Ephraim and Manasseh were taken as Joseph's tribe, representing him, but they were called the half tribes of Israel. This one half, making up Joseph. So Joseph is never a tribe in Israel. Now, it would have been fine if it was Joseph there and Ephraim and Manasseh is not there. But the problem is, Joseph is there and Manasseh is there. But Ephraim is gone. So the royal tribe of the north is gone. What's up with that? And then there's another tribe missing because we're still on 12 and not on 13. So which other one is missing there? Dan, the man. Dan's not there, right? And some people will say it's for some reason that in the book of the Judges, they were the guys that stole the idols from that guy in the end of the book of Judges, and that's why. Well, all the tribes worshipped idols at some time or other. It's all messed up. So it's not an apparent reason, all right? And then the other thing is the only guy in that entire list that is in his proper place is Benjamin. The oldest should be first, Reuben, and then it should be Simeon, and then it should be Levi, and then it should be Judah. Well, Judah is first. We can all see why Judah is first, right? Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. That's where the lion was born out of, right? But from there on out, everything is jumbled up, and the only one is the least of the brothers, Benjamin, and also the smallest of the tribes because they were nearly wiped out in the period of the Judges. They come in and they proper place, if you want to put it that way. So just everything about that list is not Israel. That's not Israel. It's not as if God is saying there's 144,000 of that particular nationality that's going to be saved. Even in that, the number is very random. Eh? It's strange. He's saying still what he said in the previous chapter. There's a multitude from every tribe and tongue and nation that is made into one kingdom. And just like he encouraged them in the previous chapter saying, and guys, the full number must first come in. He's saying to them, I know your full number. I know every single one of you that will commit your lives to me. And I will call you my elect, my chosen ones, the ones that were predestined to be part of this nation of mine. It's always been my plan. And then he flips the picture, because suddenly when he looked at the 144,000, that perfect number of them, he's saying, and I saw a multitude, a massive multitude that cannot be counted, all dressed in white, worshiping before the throne of God. They're the same group, but it's saying two different things of them. On the one hand, you're such a massive multitude from every tribe and tongue and nation, from all of these generations before my throne. And yet, I know you, DJ, by name. I know you, Jen, by name. You're numbered, Ilona. I've got you, all right? There's Europe. I know you. Because in the multitude, I can easily say, well, I don't mean that much. If I disappear out of a sea of faces, it's one drop out of the bucket. It's, but it's not. You're numbered. You're there. I know you personally. So both of these pictures are important for us. knowing that we're part of something so great and vast, all of what Jesus has brought, but also knowing that I and every one of us count in all of this. So they sealed, and the group comes in. Now, just before we close off then, see the refrain that's going to follow, because we're about to see the end, the last trumpet blown, and then the last seal broken, and then the trumpets coming in. But there's a repetition that we're going to see, this great war that was just spoken about, and the earthquake, and the fire, and the hail. It's going to come at the end of every one of these layers that he speaks about. Every one of them is going to land with this picture of a great, 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 magnificent thing that's going to happen at the end of time, both naturally, but also a war that's going to take place. So it's at the end of chapter 7, at the end of chapter 11, at the end of chapter 16, and then one last time as well, close to chapter 19. Just quickly turn my notes over here. I think we must open up a window because Carl is about to gas us out here, eh? Just beautiful as well when they're always standing in front of God's throne over there. Just to close off with, maybe you want to close your eyes for this. This incredible multitude singing before God's throne says these words. They say, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb be praise and glory, wisdom and thanks, honor and glory and strength. And Jesus Christ, thank you very much that we are very much part of a massive nation, a massive kingdom that you have brought in. But I praise you, Father, that every one of us matter. Thank you that we're numbered, that we're each sealed up. And I praise you for that seal on us, Jesus Christ, that we are recognized to be yours. We recognize to belong to the King of Kings and the one most holy. And in that, this is what Carl is painting at the moment. You don't quite see the details yet, but it's a scroll with seals on it. And on the seal, he's going to paint a face. Because this is what the picture says to me when I look at the whole of this picture. He's saying every one of these seals are in the hand of who? The Lamb. And the Lamb was the one that was broken, but obedient in all of his brokenness to the point of death, willing to shed all of his blood for us. He willingly laid down his life. He says, nobody can take my life from me. I lay it down and I will take it up again. He laid himself down on the altar. And the encouragement out of this first section is, yes, the world is wrong. And we don't just hurt because of our own sin. We hurt because of the sinful world that we live in. We're hurt by things around us, and it is unjust. But be encouraged. Be like the Lamb. Recognize that your life is in the hand of the Lamb. And if you remain faithful to God, remain trusting in God, remain with all the fruit of Him in you, even in the midst of those suffering, like the Lamb did, then something of the glory of the scroll of God is opened up in the front of people's eyes. If you've ever seen somebody going through incredible illness but remaining faithful to God, you see something of the beauty of God in that nothing else can show you. You see something of the glory and the strength of the Spirit of God radiating through that person. If you've ever seen a businessman lose something big, because some guy squandered him out of it, and he remained loving, he remained forgiving, he remained trusting, he remained faithful. Something in the glory of God is revealed in those moments when we, like the Lamb, say, I will not butt heads. I will lay myself down and trust you, God. That's what the seals really for me demonstrate. And the reason why he goes out and he put a seal on every one of them, saying, your seal is in my hand. So when you get broken, recognize that I've got you. Be like me. Be like the Lamb in those moments. Radiate the love of God, even in suffering. It's the encouragement we receive. Let's quickly have a 5-minute conversation around our tables, and then we'll have questions and answers, and we'll break for tea. Thank you.